A group of aggressive, pro-abortion, pro-LGBTQ missionaries are spreading their secular worldview around the globe. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. The 2020 Academy Award for Best Short Subject Documentary went to Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone. The film tells the story of Afghan girls who learned to skate through a program run by a Berlin-based NGO. The stated mission of this NGO is to train young people to, quote, become leaders for a better world through a combination of skateboarding lessons as well as creative arts-based education. Now, I'm a bit fuzzy how skateboarding lessons can produce leaders for a better world. Academy voters seem to like the idea. However, one person not enthralled by the film was Sahar Ghumkhor, a social scientist from the University of Melbourne. Writing in Al Jazeera, Ghumkhor called the film an example of white savior syndrome. Though this is a jarring term that's at times applied indiscriminately, it does capture an underlying cultural attitude of those who see people in the developing world as victims of an inherent backwardness. These are people who need saving, not just from sickness or drought or poverty, but from a way of life, specifically a way of thinking that holds back the developing world, typically about things like the role of tradition, sexual morality, gender and marriage roles, and the emphasis on community norms over individual desire. In this case, teaching Afghan girls how to skateboard and providing creative arts-based education is in the end shorthand for making them more Western in their views about women, and thus less backward. The hoped-for end product are artists, hipsters, and rebels with a cause who are often introduced as trailblazers. Reading Ghumkhor's piece, it becomes clear that many of these NGOs are really nothing less than secular missionaries. Of course, Christian missionaries are the ones so often depicted as judgmental and dismissive of native cultures, and the history of Christian mission certainly does include bad ideas about native peoples and bad behavior by those tasked with bringing the good news to them. Still, today, it's Western liberal secularists leading the way and being judgmental and dismissive of native cultures. In 2017, French President Emmanuel Macron lamented Africa's high birth rates as a, quote, civilizational problem. He then snidely remarked, "Present me the woman who decided, being perfectly educated, to have 7, 8, or 9 children." Macron's belief that large families are a sign of backwardness and patriarchy is perhaps one of the foundational doctrines being spread these days by secular missionaries, and that explains why abortion tends to be their sacrament. So Canada's healthcare response to COVID-19, both nationally and internationally, included increased funding for abortion. And of course, progressive rhetoric about women's health is in reality just a smokescreen for a larger goal of replacing native values about sex, marriage, and family with more enlightened neo-Western ones. And increasingly, the rhetoric we hear about inclusiveness and justice is just cover for saving these developing nations from all their antiquated views about homosexuality and gender. Obianuju Ekiocha, who's the founder of Culture of Life Africa, rightly calls the secular Western assault on native values through these missionaries ideological colonialism. Most of the African communities actually believe, she says, by tradition, by their cultural standards, that abortion is a direct attack on human life. So for anyone, she continues, to be able to convince any woman in Africa that abortion can be a good thing, you first of all have to tell her that what her parents and her grandparents and her ancestors taught her is wrong. Ekiocha is one of 20 leading Christian worldview thinkers who will present for our Truth Love Together virtual event. Specifically, she'll be talking about why speaking the truth is an act of love, especially the kinds of hard truths she often is speaking to international media outlets. Come to colsoncenterworldview.org to register. That's colsoncenterworldview.org. Teaching girls in Kabul to skateboard is fine, I suppose, but for secular missionaries to claim to create a better world when what they really mean is recreate the world in their ideological image, well, that just seems backwards. For Breakpoint, I'm John Stonestreet.